Dumb, George Michael, dumb.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Listography. Side 3 this week. We're doing something a little different. Usually we make a list of some sort. Today we're just having an open discussion. We are going to try to figure out if it's better to burn out or to fade away.
Well, I say fade away. Just because you got to put yourself in the shoes of the artist. No one wants to stop making music. No one wants to be totally forgotten. No one wants to be preserved in time. Neil Young made 15 forgettable albums because he wanted to record music, and you can't get on anyone's case for that. I mean, James Dean may have eventually made some shitty movies and not had an appeal when he was older. Maybe he was just, had the cool young Michael Cera syndrome where he can only do one thing, and he did the 50s rebel teen thing great, and that's what everyone knows, and that's frozen in time. But I don't think greatness should be devalued when lousier stuff comes around. That's what I'm saying. I think if it's etched in stone, that's where it is. And like for Neil, it's not a median of how good all of the albums are. It's his best stuff. It's the style. And it's, if the old son of a bitch wants to make music into his 90s, who knows? And the main point of this is look at Rough and Rowdy Ways, which is great. And Dylan was 79, 80 when he did it this year. So eventually Neil may come out with another terrific album. So just never stop, never give up. Just fade away. If you got it, flaunt it. If you don't have it, try to flaunt it. So I say fade away.
I always come back to like Paul McCartney and John Lennon, and neither of them really, John Lennon didn't burn out, but is sort of, okay, he got shot and killed, but he has a limited sort of, discography. You can't, like Paul McCartney, he just keeps going and going, and does that diminish his legacy at all from the Beatles stuff? People seem to prefer John Lennon on critics' lists. John Lennon's always kind of a little bit higher than Paul McCartney, and I always wonder why. Is that because McCartney keeps putting out these albums that sort of, it's like a Hall of Fame baseball player. You have your peak years, your 7 years, and then if you hit 250 for 20 years, does that make you less of a Hall of Fame player? Or is it just your peak years? Is Kurt Cobain one of the greatest of all time? He had 3 albums, and that's it. And then, there was no more. There's no diminishing of that legacy. That's what he is forever. If he was still making music today and people were like, oh, you should probably stop, Kurt, would that, take away from Nevermind and In Utero? Or, is that kind of legacy locked in? With Neil, his legacy of the 70s is so strong. Does the 80s stuff diminish it? Does the recent stuff diminish that at all? It doesn't kind of seem like it. If you listen to the media and you read reviews of new stuff, it doesn't seem like, okay, well, Neil's not that great anymore because he has 20 albums that aren't great, even though he was one of the greatest of all time in the 70s. I don't know. It seems to depend. Bob Dylan's legacy has not been hurt by his weird 80s stuff and his Christian stuff. And so maybe it just depends on the artist.
Yeah, I mean, people kind of think unfavorably of U2, mainly because of Bono's public image and also because their newer stuff hasn't been great. But if they would have been tragically killed in an airplane accident after Achtung Baby, they'd be so well regarded. But so it does kind of depend on artist to artist. But yeah, I mean, I've never heard anyone say, I used to like Neil, but I haven't liked any of his albums the last decade, so I hate him now.
No, I wouldn't say that, but I think his standing as one of the all-time greats is a little bit diminished by the recent stuff. And I think, Joe's right that critically, no one is saying that it's bad. If anything, they're saying that his newer stuff is getting a pass because of his 70s output. I think critics just give him good reviews because of what he did in the past, because some of his glowing reviews I do not get at all. When Lanois came out, it got positive reviews across the board, and I just didn't understand it then, and I don't understand it now.
I like Lanois, so I get it.
I definitely think it comes into play. Like, you read like reviews of like the Rolling Stones' last albums, like A Bigger Bang got 5 stars in Rolling Stone, and there seems to be some sort of like legacy at play. Because if some unknown band had released A Bigger Bang, it's a fine record. It's a good 3 out of 5 stars maybe, but like, and same with U2. Rolling Stone keeps giving them 5 stars for albums that everyone doesn't seem to like much. The populace doesn't like it. They didn't even like getting it free on their iPhones.
Rolling Stone's the most guilty of that. They give every legacy act 5 stars almost every time. Like with Springsteen, and they're just
a lot of Springsteen as well. Sort of just propping them up, even though their new stuff isn't anything to write home about. It's certainly not some of the best work of the past 10 years. I don't know. I mean, it comes down to, something like the Sex Pistols, one album, the definitive Burnout and Not Fade Away that Neil Young was talking about, Johnny Rotten. They're sort of etched in time. Their legacy will never diminish for what they did, even though they couldn't even play their instruments and they sucked. They still have, this album that kind of is held up as the pinnacle of punk rock. And I feel like if they had kept going and released more albums, they probably would have lost a lot of that standing.
If the only 2 options are Burnout or Fade Away, I think Burnout. But I think what you really want to do is have a long-lasting career of extended greatness. I think that's the goal, right?
I think that's kind of obvious, Jason.
Yeah, really groundbreaking insight.
Between the 2, I say Burnout.
I say Fade Away.
You don't want to be that TV show that sticks around for 5 too many seasons and no one's watching anymore.
Right. You don't want to be The Simpsons. You want to be The Critic or
Breaking Bad,
the animated series.
What?
or Arrested Development before it came back, and
that's the perfect analogy.
Yeah, they did it. They burned out and then they came back and faded away. Who does that?
Sure, but if Neil had stopped after, what if he had stopped after This Note's for You? We'd never gotten the cool 90s stuff, never gotten Harvest Moon. I mean, there's a few albums of 2000 on that I like a good bit. I like Psychedelic Pill and Colorado. So, you never know. You never know. If you're an artist, you want to keep producing, and that's, to me, the end-all, be-all.
I do agree with that and that general sentiment, but there is a watering down of one's discography that can occur.
I think if he had stopped after Rust Never Sleeps, he'd probably be regarded as a top 3 artist of all time. Like if he, had an accident and, lost his limbs or something or died or whatever, if you just pick his 70s output, especially critically, it's some of the best reviewed and acclaimed albums of all time. And I don't know, if he had, burned out right then, I think his legacy would sort of be unimpeachable. So I don't know, it's interesting. It's a great philosophical discussion.
I mean, I think for a lot of people, he is top 5, or even with the, not for me. Yeah, I don't know.
Dumb, George Michael, dumb.
I like the idea of, if you have the desire to make music, just keep making it. I agree with that philosophy, but I don't know. I'm going to stick with Burnout. But what is it? Let us know down in the comments. Should we stop doing listography videos now?
I don't fade away. I think we're done. This is the end.
Peaked with Springsteen, and we now need to just hang him up.
Let us know down in the comments. Maybe give us some examples of artists that burned out and some artists that faded away. And subscribe, hit the bell so that you get notifications. We've got 1982 coming up later this week. Check down in the description for links to all the socials, and we will see you next time.